On the 16th of October 2012, Chivalry Medieval Warfare was released onto PC and consoles. It was something very different for many gamers and arguably brought the medieval world into a more mainstream audience. But 5 years later, is it dead? Chivalry Medieval Warfare is a multiplayer-focused hack-and-slash developed by Torn Banner Studios as their first commercial title. The game is set in a fictional world resembling the Middle Ages and offers similar gameplay combat to the developers' previously released Half-Life 2 mod, Age of Chivalry. Unlike many other games of this genre, Chivalry caught the sales big time. In August 2013, it was announced that the game had sold 1.2 million copies, and as of October 2014, the game has sold 2 million copies in total. Now back in 2017, I suspect that is going to be almost double. So how does this game sell so well? One word: YouTubers. Every now and then, a game comes around that takes the interest of a big YouTuber. From that, it just spreads like wildfire. Making gameplay videos becomes the norm, and it can just make another release into a big selling hit. We've had this with so many games. Back in the day, we had Slender and Happy Wheels being blown up by YouTubers such as PewDiePie and Jacksepticeye. Later was Five Nights at Freddy's, and then more recently, Rust and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. These games were never planning on being big hits with the fans, but with marketing towards a select audience, they were able to get the games out to their massive audiences of many YouTubers. And the same thing happened with Chivalry. With big names at the time like Total Biscuit and the Yogscast playing the multiplayer in their videos in events that were sorted out by the organisers, the game sold like a storm. But why was the game so popular in the long run? What kept people there? What made it different to other games as well? The only thing that came slightly close to it at the time was War of the Roses or Mount and Blade. But even then, Chivalry stood out with its own unique playstyle and combat mechanics. Whilst games like Warband focused more on quick hand-to-hand combat and archery tactics, Chivalry focused on a more realistic pathway, each weapon having its own weight and feel. And yes, swinging a claymore really did feel like you were swinging a 4-foot weapon, or smashing a hammer into your enemy's shield felt so heavy it was almost as if you were really there. Such a melee style has its advantages and disadvantages though. On the one hand, its difficult to master system could leave some rage-inducing moments to say the least. Yes, come on, yes. Nope. It's so annoying. But once in a fluid sequence, the innovative combat rose above anything else on the offer at the time. Chivalry gave players a sense of brutalism. Decapitation and amputation solidified the game in the history books for being one of the most brutal first-person games of the medieval world, and quite rightly. Having the ability to hack arms and legs off during a melee duel made it stick. It rewarded the players with a visual cue that they were the better fighter. Because of this, most of the time was not spent casting an eye to a cluttered UI screen, or over to a saturated kill feed, but strafing from one fell swoop to another, taking down multiple enemies simultaneously. There's also the ability to hack off the limbs of dead players on the ground. So adding more insult to injury, after someone's already been beaten, you can chop off their arms and legs, and if you really want to get in there, take their head off as well. In the game, you have set classes. Yet within these, you can customize the weapons and equipment you take into battle to suit your needs. Because of this, players are able to test out what works and what doesn't, to the point of being able to change their chosen weapon nearly every death, keeping people interested. Because of this variety, there can be some setbacks. Complaints of balance have been apparent in the past, but yet it's never seemed to deter the medieval gamer from taking the field with nothing but a bow and a knife. Logging in, the game servers are still pretty much thriving. You would think after nearly 5 years, the game would be on its way out. And yes, granted it's nowhere near what it used to be, yet the player base is still there, and whilst many servers still need some love, there is a plethora of full or almost full games that you can get your grasps on. Playing with up to 24 people on my server in this day and age would seem like nothing much to shout home about. Yet, because of the expert map design and game mechanics, the player count is perfect for the playstyle of Chivalry Medieval Warfare. I have to admit, I'm not the best player by far, being more of a backseat viewer when it was first released, only because it was something that I couldn't obtain due to the lack of money and a decent PC. Yet playing it years later doesn't give me any less of a thrill to what I probably would have experienced back in the day. Map design goes as far to the point where kicking someone, which would probably normally have little effect, can be changed into a death-dealing blow, as one step wrong from the enemy could send them flying into spiked walls or even off a cliff. Having this intensity of map design keeps the games flowing to the point where you're rarely standing in one place for very long. And beware, if you do, the archers will know about it. Archery is brutal in this. Being able to snipe people from across the map, having the archer cam, going in and seeing where your arrow is hitting, and also, you may think they might not be too good at melee, but if you know how to block, even an archer can take down a fully tin can knight. So, is this game dead? Is the player base still there, or does it need some love? As I said previously, the servers are not what they used to be. Compared to the early release date, they are desolate. But for a game released 5 years ago, it is a masterpiece, and with enough of a player base that no matter what time of the day you choose to boot up Chivalry, you are going to have a guaranteed great time. And being so cheap on Steam at the moment, if you haven't already, it's definitely an experience that you should pick up. The creators of Chivalry, Tournband Studios, then went on to creating their newly released Mirage Arcane Warfare, which gives the Chivalry fighting style a Middle Eastern and magical look. But not only has Chivalry given the numerous expansions and sequels to its name, but inspired other games such as Mordhau, which is set to be released sometime in the near future, keeping a similar first-person medieval weighted fighting style, yet improving on the game in as many ways possible. A game that is dead is not worth picking up, especially when it comes to a multiplayer experience. But this is not that game. That is not Chivalry Medieval Warfare.